fearless woman and for trying to remove herself from the tense situation Donald Trump and Secretary Nome ICE manufactured and escalated. An ICE officer shot her 3 times and killed her. Renee Good was a mother of 3 children. She was a wife, a writer, a poet, a devoted Christian, and a U.S. citizen. She was a human being. She was a newcomer to the city of Minneapolis, but she had the kindness of heart and devotion to welfare of strangers to want to support her new neighbors. In the words of her wife, we honor Renee's memory by living her values, rejecting hate, and choosing compassion, turning away from fear and pursuing peace, refusing division and knowing what we must come together to build a world where we all can come home safe to the people we love, unquote. Our heartfelt condolences go out to her wife, children, family, friends, and neighbors. At this time, I ask my colleagues to join me in a moment of silence to honor the memory of Miss Good. Thank you. Now I want to discuss where we go from here. People in cities and communities throughout our country are grieving, they are scared, they are angry. I'm here with my colleagues, and we hear from them that Donald Trump's administration's actions have been hateful as well as harmful. Immediately after last week's shooting, Kristi Noem rushed to the nearest camera and spouted off a series of bold-faced lies. Her disgusting response set the stage for a brazenly political federal investigation that has excluded state and local officials and is clearly intended to shield the shooter from prosecution. Incredibly, the investigation has focused not on the shooter, but on the victim and her family. As a result, several federal prosecutors have resigned in protest. Kristi Noem has plainly tried to signal to ICE that they are free to act with impunity, to purposefully manufacture and escalate confrontations, and even execute whomever they please, and she will have their back. She has unleashed ICE and other federal law enforcement officers upon American communities, not to protect them, but to attack them and to sow fear, violence, and chaos. We cannot and we will not tolerate this violence against our communities. The killing of Miss Good must be independently investigated to those responsible, from the agent who pulled the trigger to the president and secretary who deployed them. They must be held accountable. And we cannot stop there. Unfortunately, when it comes to Ms. Noem, this cruelty and disregard for the rule of law is part of a long pattern of behavior. This shooting did not happen in a vacuum. It is a tragic result of Noem's dangerous reign as secretary. Since taking office, Noem has established a corrupt culture at the Department of Homeland Security. She and her political allies conduct themselves as though they are above the law. She has wantonly enriched herself and her associates at taxpayers' expense. She has openly defied court orders, undermining the constitutional rule of law. She has used access to disaster funds to punish political foes, and she has obstructed congressional oversight. She has directed the indiscriminate deportation of thousands of people without due process, most of whom have no criminal record, including U.S. citizens, children, some with serious illnesses against the wishes of their parents. In short, Kristi Noem has repeatedly abused her power and violated her oath of office. This is why today we are announcing we will begin a process of accountability for Secretary Noem. This is not a remedy, but we pursue it aggressively. As a scholar put it, a last-ditch mechanism to address offenses against constitutional democracy by a single individual that cannot adequately address those ordinary channels of government. So it's accountability. We'll start the process looking at. We're not sure where it will go, but we'll follow it wherever it leads. Her conduct has gravely endangered the security of the United States, its people, and its institutions of government. Kristi Noem must be held accountable. So what we'll have now, we have a number of individuals who are here who will speak, and we'll have questions and answers after. I'm not sure. We have the representative from Minneapolis here, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who will speak, and we'll have other individuals after that. I'll yield to Congresswoman Omar.
Thank you, Ranking Member Thompson. Today, we are honoring the life and memory of Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother of three, a writer, and a poet. Renee's mother remembers her as one of the kindest people she's ever known. For anyone who knew her, says Renee spent her life caring for others, always putting their needs first. Her deep love for community drove her to stand up for her immigrant neighbors. She had just dropped off her 6-year-old son off at school and was serving as a legal observer when she was murdered by an ICE agent in South Minneapolis. ICE's reckless actions have taken a mother from 3 children, a partner from a wife, and inflicted unfathomable pain on our community. My deepest condolences go to Renee's family, friends, and anyone who loved her. We will not stop fighting until we achieve real justice and accountability. That must begin with impeaching Kristi Noem and ensuring no federal agent can act as a judge, jury, and executioner on our streets. It must also include full and transparent investigation and legal action against ICE. While we grieve, our community, as always, has shown up for one another with love. ICE officers have been struck by solidarity and care Minnesotans have shown for their neighbors. In the face of state-sanctioned violence, we have organized and protected each other. That is what Renee stood for. She died because she chose love and solidarity over fear, and we will make sure the world never forgets her name. Thank you, and with that, I call on Congressman Espaillat.
Is Grace here?
Yes. We'll have Congresswoman Grace Meng.
Thank you so much, Representative Omar, and thank you for Chairman Thompson for bringing us together. Hi, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Grace Meng, Chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, or CAPAC. Thank you so much to Representative Omar, Ranking Member Thompson, Ranking Member Raskin, CHC Chair Espaillat, and the members of Congress here today for your leadership. Renee Nicole Good was a mom. She was a wife. She was a poet, singer, and most importantly, she was a U.S. citizen. She had just dropped her 6-year-old child off at school before she was shot and killed by an ICE agent. We have all seen the horrific video. Federal agents dressed for war, escalating a situation they were clearly unequipped to handle, and now a mom is dead. Her family and community are struggling with this unimaginable loss. There were many emotions that went through my head that day. Shock, sadness, but above all, outrage, because this did not need to happen. Renee should still be alive today. What happened in Minneapolis is only the latest example of the terror and lawlessness that ICE agents have brought to our neighborhoods. Across the country, untrained, militarized agents are being unleashed in our streets. They are using force without restraint, and they continue to act with impunity. But they are not above the law. As members of Congress, we not have only a duty, but a moral obligation to ensure rogue federal agencies are held accountable. That's why we are demanding an immediate and independent investigation, including the release of all video footage from authorities. And we are calling on ICE to suspend operations in Minnesota to de-escalate this situation. I'll later be introducing a bill that would hold DHS law enforcement to the same standards that other local and federal law enforcement agents already follow when interacting with citizens. Justice means accountability, and let Renee Nicole Good's name be a call for accountability, not just in Minneapolis, but across our entire country. Next, I would like to call, is Julie here? Julie Johnson. Representative Lou Correa.
Lou.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to ask all of you, what happened? What the hell happened in this country? 911, cowardly attack on our country. Thousands of Americans died. So we created the Department of Homeland Security to protect Americans from terrorist attacks. A president gets elected promising to deport criminals undocumented. Big, beautiful bill, $160 billion plus to build this massive paramilitary machine. What happened? American citizens being arrested, being detained, being held for days until they can prove they're American citizens. American citizens with passports ignored, being detained. What's going on, people? It's not them, it's us. Armed paramilitary force massed in our streets, arresting our friends and neighbors. Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, have essentially ignored the Constitution. They have ignored Congress. They've obstructed our ability to conduct oversight. They cherry pick what federal court decisions to follow and which ones to not. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a serious moment for our country. Homeland Security, to defend us against foreign terrorists. We are not terrorists. If we choose to exert our First Amendment, freedom of speech, to demonstrate, to express ourselves, that does not make us terrorists. That does not mean that people need to be shot and killed like Renee Nicole just for being there. Please, folks, don't let this die. We've got to push hard, like our ranking member has said, to make sure we have full investigation, full accountability. These are our taxpayer dollars. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce my colleagues, Mr. Thanader.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I also want to thank our leader, ranking member Thompson, for his leadership, and all of my colleagues here who are actively speaking out against what's happening in America. Just a few weeks ago, I introduced a bill in the U.S. Congress eliminating qualified immunity for ICE agents. When ICE agents murder American citizens in our cities, they must face consequences. They must be brought to justice, and they cannot hide behind, as the Vice President J.D. Vance suggested, hiding behind this immunity. So my bill would ask that the qualified immunity be removed for these murderers. In our cities all across America, ICE is working beyond control under the leadership of Kristi Noem. My second ask, and I'm just proud to have co-sponsored a resolution to impeach Secretary Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem has lied to my Homeland Security Committee. She has misused taxpayer funds and now leading an agency, leading ICE, that is committing crimes across America. Kristi Noem must be impeached. She must face the consequences of this. And we must, finally, we must reform ICE. But it looks at this stage, folks, ICE is beyond reform. ICE is totally out of control. And this week, I intend to introduce a bill to abolish ICE. We need to make ICE go away. 2003, before 2003, without ICE, various federal agencies were able to take care of business, and we can do this without ICE. But we do not need the murderers. We do not need these paramilitary organizations, members on our street terrorizing U.S. citizens, terrorizing moms, terrorizing our children. You know, to summarize, I ask Kristi Noem be impeached. I ask that ICE be abolished, and I certainly ask that the qualified immunity for ICE end right now. Thank you all. I would ask my colleague Delia Ramirez to come and address the press.
Thank you, Congressman. Well, good afternoon. It's a cloudy day. It's 1 week from the horrifying murder that we all saw on video happen in Minnesota. And it is cloudy because we know that we're weeping at what we are seeing happen around the country. You see, for the last year, as Americans watch the violence and indignity on their phones and televisions, they have come to understand what so many of us already know. DHS, as it's operating, is now a threat to every one of us. But I want to be clear. What is happening today in our communities, it's not an accident, and it's not new. DHS immigration agents in many cases are not operating rogue. And I'll tell you why. Because from its establishment, the Department of Homeland Security and ICE has been empowered through a lack of oversight and too much latitude to violate our rights under the pretense of securing our safety. Now, do you feel safe right now? Do you believe that DHS operates with due process? Do you think that they are abiding by the law? Cursing out U.S. citizens, do you think they have respect for the American people? And what you saw on January 7th in Minneapolis is that Americans saw the danger of infusing resources into DHS abuse of power. ICE shot citizen Renee Nicole Good in the face and then called her names. So now we have seen so plainly what DHS can do with its unlimited resources and unchecked power. Funding ICE only fuels our own destruction. We cannot assure our security by sacrificing our humanity, our dignity, or liberty. So what can we do? How do we protect our Constitution? How do we protect our constituents? Well, we have to do three things. One, there has to be consequences for how DHS has abused taxpayer dollars to violate our rights. We must use Congress appropriations power to hold DHS and ICE accountable. Yes, we must oppose new investments, even more money, and demand policy change and reforms. We have to claw back ICE's funding as a natural consequence for DHS's disregard for the rule of law and violations of our rights. Number two, there has to be accountability for every act of violence and lawlessness perpetrated by federal agents on the ground. For every constituent who has been tear gassed, hit with pepper balls, subjected to warrantless arrest and precision immobilization maneuvers. For those that have been kidnapped and disappeared, we must prosecute the criminals in masks. Number three, we must work together as an organized caucus committed to be the opposition party, even as the minority party, to build the pressure and to also build a case so that we can, in fact, impeach Noam and every single fascist leader so they never, ever hold public office again. Look, I called for her resignation back in April. It feels like 100 years ago. And yes, I have called for impeachment before. But Homeland and every member here wants to make sure we go through a process that actually gets us to the outcome we want. And that is why I'm happy to be working with our leaders here today, with the Committee of Judiciary and Oversight, to ensure that our efforts ultimately do, in fact, lead to her removal. Whether it's by resignation, whether it's by termination, or by impeachment. But Kristi Noem has got to go, and we will do everything in our power to ensure it happens as quickly as possible. With that, I'd like to now introduce to you my colleague here to the right of me, the Honorable Congressman Tim Kennedy.
Thank you. First, let me begin by thanking the ranking member of Homeland Security, past chair and future chair of the Homeland Security Committee, Betty Thompson, for organizing this effort, and for all of my colleagues for joining us here today. For far too long, we've seen a Department of Homeland Security under this administration that is unchecked, unrestrained, unhinged, and at this juncture, unconstitutional. Secretary Noem began her tenure by unleashing ICE into our cities, ignoring due process, and detaining U.S. citizens, lawful residents, and children with cancer. On top of that, she's defied federal court orders, withheld FEMA dollars intended for disaster survivors, blocked meaningful oversight of DHS, and obstructed the United States Congress time and time again. And in recent months, she's only doubled down on her mission to terrorize our communities and militarize our streets, which has brought violence to our neighborhoods. Tragically, these reckless decisions culminated in the death of Renee Good, a mother of three, a devout Christian, a partner, a poet, and a beloved community member of Minneapolis who had the courage to stand up for what is right. This department has lost all credibility, allegiance to the rule of law, and any shred of decency and integrity that was left. House Democrats are here today to stand up for the rule of law, protect fundamental rights, and fight for the future of all of our communities across this great nation. It is time for decisive action to end this systemic abuse of power by Secretary Noem. The safety of the American people is at risk, and the future of our country hangs in the balance. Kristi Noem must resign immediately, or this body must act to impeach her. I now call on my good friend, Representative LaMonica McIver.
Good afternoon, everyone. I first want to take a moment to thank our ranking member, Benny Thompson, for hosting this press conference today and for his leadership. As mentioned, I'm Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, and I represent communities in New Jersey that live in constant fear. Families too terrified to step outside, send their kids to school, go to the grocery store, or take a trip to the doctor because of the harassment of ICE and Homeland Security. This isn't about public safety, and it's not public safety. It's state-sponsored fear. And the fear people live, the fear that people feel is real and unwarranted. Families are being ripped apart. Americans are being brutalized. People are dying. People are dying in ICE custody. And the government is trying to stop anyone from conducting oversight of their brutality. And I know that firsthand. An ICE agent who reports to Kristi Noem shot and killed an American citizen in the street last week. Then, without a single one of the facts, Kristi Noem called Renee Nicole Good, the woman who ICE killed in her car, a domestic terrorist, before she even knew her name. Let me speak directly to Secretary Noem today. You are terrible at doing your job. You are incompetent. You are shameless. But most of all, you are cruel. The American people do not want you. We do not want you. And we will do whatever we need to do to make sure you will not hold that post soon. God will judge you, and Democrats are going to remove you from office that you never deserved to hold in the first place. With that, I would like to call up my colleague, James Wickeshaw from Virginia.
I want to add my appreciation to Ranking Member Thompson for bringing us together today to begin this process of accountability for Secretary Noem. And just a few hours ago, not far from here in Virginia, I dropped off my 5-year-old at his preschool. And when he was smaller, when he was younger, and I would drop him off at daycare, he had a tough time with it. A lot of parents have probably experienced that. He would cry a little bit and not want me to leave. And I used to read him a book. It was a Daniel Tiger book. And in that book, Daniel is struggling with the same thing. And his teachers and parents say to Daniel Tiger, "Don't worry, Daniel, grown-ups always come back." And Renee Good dropped off her 6-year-old at school, and she didn't come back. And she didn't come back because of the cruelty and the violence and the recklessness that Donald Trump and Kristi Noem and DHS and ICE have unleashed in communities across this country. That's the human cost of what they've done. Renee Nicole Good's 3 children are without a mother today. And law-abiding citizens and immigrants across this country are terrified. They're asking themselves, am I next? Will I be beaten, arrested, killed? And as Renee's children, including that 6-year-old, mourn their mother, this administration, this White House down the street, is more interested in spinning a narrative than getting to the truth, refusing to conduct a real investigation, and expressing zero remorse for the killing of Renee Good. Under Secretary Noem, DHS has spiraled into utter chaos. Guns pulled on kids and peaceful protesters, pregnant women dragged, Americans thrown to the ground by masked agents in their communities, and now the killing of a mother in Minneapolis. It's a pattern. Since Donald Trump returned to office, federal immigration officers have opened fire at least 16 times nationwide. And senior officials like Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino lead raids in city after city and refer to Americans and protesters as cannon fodder. If that's the mindset at the top, then we're just one operation, one raid away from the next killing. This brutality and lawlessness must stop now. Later this week, I and other members will travel to Minnesota for a field hearing to learn firsthand what happened, to hear directly from witnesses to this killing, to hear about the violence that's taking place against unarmed protesters and people, including American citizens, who have been wrongfully taken from their families. Today, we demand a full and impartial investigation, the preservation and release of every record and every piece of video, and as the ranking member said, real accountability up the chain of DHS to include Secretary Noem. We will not stand by while DHS continues to be weaponized against the American people. Renee's family, her wife, and her children deserve justice, and all of our communities deserve safety and dignity. And with that, it's my honor to introduce my colleague, Congressman Troy Carter.
Thank you all for being here on this brisk afternoon, and I want to particularly thank my dear friend and our ranking member, Benny Thompson, for having the courage, the wisdom, and the tenacity for convening this important press conference today. Mr. Vice President, Secretary Noem, allow me to give you the briefing that your staffs failed to give you. Renee Nicole Macklin Good was a mother of three, a wife, a writer, a poet, a devoted Christian, a United States citizen. She wasn't a terrorist. She wasn't there to cause harm. She was exercising what we often encourage people to do. If you see an injustice, say something. If you see an injustice, do something. Many would say that she was a hero because she saw an injustice and she didn't retreat to the comfort of her home. In fact, she put herself in harm's way after dropping her baby off to school, as many of us do. She stood up for the American value. She stood up for free speech, for protection under the law. And she paid the ultimate price by a rogue so-called peace officer who chose violence over de-escalation, who chose bravado over questioning fairly. See, this is not the America that we stand for. This is not the America that you stand for. Mr. President, she was not a terrorist. Madam Secretary, she was not a terrorist as you described her. We honor her today by rejecting hate, choosing compassion, and demanding a country where everyone gets home safely, even when we disagree. Free speech is not unique to language we want to hear. Free speech is not relegated to only those things you agree with. Free speech is protected, especially when you don't agree, especially when you don't like what you hear. That's what makes America so great. That's why accountability matters. Under Donald Trump and Kristi Noem's Department of Homeland Security, they've deployed federal forces not to protect communities, unfortunately, to terrorize them. We're seeing this in New Orleans with the influx of masked, unidentifiable federal agents involved in Operation Catahoula Crunch. Sounds like a dance or a cheap cereal, but it isn't. It's an attack on individual freedoms and rights. And today we stand against that. And tomorrow we'll stand against that. And next week and next year and the year after that, we will stand against that. And our numbers and our voices will grow stronger and larger as more and more citizens recognize that an affront to any individual is an affront to every individual. To make matters worse, instead of seeking information, instead of being briefed and getting facts, our secretary chose to lie and smear the victim and cover up the truth. And this administration ordered the Justice Department to investigate her grieving wife. Federal prosecutors are resigning in protest because they know this is wrong. Let me be clear, lest anyone in this audience or anyone watching this later misunderstand what we're saying today. We support strong action against any dangerous individuals who commit any acts of violence. We must stop these operations that create fear and disruption for families, workers, and small business owners. This violence, corruption, and abuse of power cannot stand. Secretary Noem has defied the law, obstructed Congress, and violated the very oath of office she swore to protect and defend our great country. It is time that this must stop. We will not stop until it has stopped. Now it is my honor to present to you the esteemed member of Congress from Texas, my dear brother and friend, Representative Al Green.
Thank you, Troy. I appreciate greatly your very kind words. And I, too, would like to thank the chairman in waiting, ranking member currently, for being so courageous and bold as to take us in this direction. His leadership is invaluable. His stewardship has proven to us that he is the right person in the right place at the right time. And today, we the people, by the way, we are the we and we the people. Today, we the people would like the world to know that what happened to Ms. Good is an injustice that will not go without accountability. We must remember that the BBC has reported the wife of Ms. Good has said, "We had whistles, they had guns. We had whistles, they had guns." We might also note that Ms. Noem, immediately after the shooting took place, concluded that Ms. Good was a terrorist. It's been said by many of my colleagues. I agree. This is what she said: a domestic terrorist. Friends, if Miss Renee Nicole Good can be labeled, styled, captioned a domestic terrorist, any one of us can. Any one of you can become a domestic terrorist. And the fate that she suffered can befall any one of you. If they can do it to her, an American citizen, in her car, saying, "I'm not mad at you," pulling away to avoid the tragedy that she suffered, it can happen to any one of us. So we have a duty, a responsibility, and an obligation, a moral obligation, to make sure that we do all that we can to get justice for Miss Renee Nicole Good. And that justice includes a thorough investigation. Notably, the Trump Justice Department has concluded that it will shut out the locals, shut them out, not allow them to have access to information. This says to me, Al Green, one member of Congress, I speak for no one except myself and anybody who agrees with me. It says to me that they are setting us up to prevent the officers or officer from being properly charged And if he is charged and convicted, they're setting us up to understand that what happened here at the nation's capital, when it was encroached upon by hundreds of people, some say thousands, and afterwards, people were convicted, more than 1,500. And the President of the United States, immediately upon being put into office, decided that he would allow all of them to go free by way of his pen and an order. I believe the President is preparing us so that he can do exactly again what he did to those hundreds of people who performed an insurrection here on the Capitol. He is going to exonerate them by way of an executive order. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sorry if you think that I spoke too
Thank
long.
you so much. We now have Ms. Juliet Johnson, who's a last member of the committee and obviously a valued member of the committee from Texas.
I'm going to be really quick, not to summarize what everyone else has said. The bottom line is Kristi Noem executed an oath for this Constitution to uphold its laws. She's enabling her agency and organization to violate every aspect of due process, to violate the law and terrorize American citizens. The Committee on Homeland Security, the Homeland Dems, we intend to use every tool, every mechanism, every opportunity, every time to speak out, to condemn, to hold her accountable in every way possible within every tool we have in this Congress. Because the American people will not tolerate for its government to exercise rogue authoritarian dictatorship control and abuse and terrorize American citizens on the street of this country. You can't drive your car, drop your kid off to school, and get executed by your government in the United States of America, and that will not be tolerated. So we're here to tell you, to tell this country, to tell the world that we intend to do everything we can to hold her completely accountable, and she must go. Thank you so much.
Because they've called votes, we're going to have to shorten the question. The issue before us today is Homeland Dems have decided to move toward holding Kristi Noem accountable for the actions of the department. ICE, as well as FEMA and some other areas will be looked at. Nothing is off the table, but accountability is the key of what we're talking about. Yes. Nothing is off the table. It's accountability. We will be in Minneapolis this weekend, looking there. We plan to go to other areas. We want to talk to communities. We want to get a sense of what's happening more than what we are seeing on TV. So members, Democratic members, will be going all over the country, collecting data, testimony, and other things as to what's going on. And ultimately, that accountability will lead us to a decision. Some people, as you've heard, have already reached a decision, but from the standpoint of the committee as a whole, we're looking at accountability. And no one, including this administration, is above the law.
Congressman Thompson?
Yes.
Just a few hours earlier, one of your colleagues had a press conference announcing an impeachment resolution on Secretary Noem. Members in this press conference also said that they were already reached that conclusion. Does that undermine your effort, which you say is going to be a process? You're not ready to jump to that conclusion.
Well, look, we have one resolution that has 50 names of members already on it. But I think the key is for those who have jurisdiction. We have decided that we want to move toward accountability. We'll be talking with the Judiciary Committee as well as Government Reform and Oversight to see whether or not this accountability can be moved forward. But obviously there are some people who've been directly impacted by the actions of ICE, and they feel so impacted they're moving forward with impeachment. And that's one of the fundamental rights that the framers of our Constitution put together, is that we can do just that. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So ICE is funded for 3 years.
Well, yes. There are a lot of people who who look at it. They have the resources. This administration is in charge, and Democrats are the minority party. All we can do is move forward, elevate the issues so the public understand what's happening. As a nation of laws, we can't have people running around with masks on asking people for their citizenship. We are not a tin-horn dictatorship. We are a democracy. Thank you very much.
Congressman, we heard Congressman Danadar say he wants to introduce a bill to abolish ICE. Do any of the three of you support that, sir?